Hello, everyone. This is Jen, your grant guru. How are you? Listen, I have been trying to get this thing going for a while, and I'm finally started, and I'm super, super excited. So, let me tell you about me. Many of you guys may have come across some of my other ramblings about my profession and what I do, but now I'm super organized, super, 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 super organized, and I'm excited about it. So, my name is Jennifer, short for Jen. Everybody calls me Jen. I'm a pastor. I'm a coach. I'm a trainer. I'm an entrepreneur. And everyone calls me Jen. Pastor Jen, Pastor Jen. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go with it. Jen, the grant guru. And my passion is working with startups, small startup nonprofits who really are wanting and desiring to get the leverage, the financial leverage that they need to move forward with their program expansion, mission expansion, implementation, their reach, their capacity, all of that is what I specialize in. I have been fundraising and writing grants and teaching and coaching for close to 30 years. I have done the work. Not only have I been the writer, the researcher, the reviewer, right? So I've been the one on the other side who has also been the one to score, making sure that all the grants meet the criteria of the funder and determine who actually gets the check. That would be me. I have raised probably, trying to calculate with almost 30 years of experience, I would guess I've probably raised close to $70 million with all the organizations that I've worked with. I mean, I've worked with the American Red Cross. I've worked with the National Headquarters of Girl Scouts. I mean, I've worked with the Black AIDS Institute, the Los Angeles Mission. I mean, some really big, prestigious organization over the years. And I am so excited that now I have the opportunity, and I have been for probably the last 20 years, coaching and training. And so now I've stepped out along with all of my other daily tasks and duties. I have found within the last probably, I don't know, maybe 9 years that my target and my passion and my heart is for startup organizations. Yeah, my heart is for those who are just starting out, who are really wanting to be successful and want focus, right? I am really learning the value of focus because my life is crazy, right? I got all these things and wear so many hats, and I have just had to step back and with the organizations that I've been working with, particularly the last, like I said, 8 to 10 years, I have repeated myself over and over and over again. And actually, it was a friend of mine who came to me and she said, Jen, you need to share what you do with others. I mean, like, I must get easily 10 calls a week. 10 calls a week from someone who is wanting to start their nonprofit, interested in starting their nonprofit. And I kind of lived a life of not telling anybody what I did. I was like, I don't tell people what I do because the first thing is they bring me some impossible tasks and I can't help them with, like, help me raise money. And no, I don't have a program. No, I haven't written it down. No, I don't have any strategy behind it, but I know that I need money. So I have decided to work with focused work with individuals who are really interested in moving forward with their grant writing. And so I decided to give tips, okay? Because this is what I do all day. All day I'm giving tips. All day I'm telling people, this is what you should do. This is what you shouldn't do in the grant writing cycle. Because again, I've been the writer, I've been the researcher, I've been the reviewer, I've been the one that has had to do the reporting, I've been the executive director, I've been the person that worked with finance and development, and I just have done it for close to 30 years that I just really haven't thought about it. But now, under the encouragement of a friend of mine, I thought, okay, I am going to really focus it. I'm going to put videos out. I'm going to put tips out to help you, as many people as possible, write really strong, compelling, competitive grants. Okay, so I just kind of want to take you behind the scenes of the review process, because many people think, oh, all I have to do is write the grant and then I'll get the money. But there is a process. There is a process of reviewing, and I want to share that with you. So today I'm going to talk about the process of first steps of writing your grant proposal. Okay, that's what I really want to talk to you about, because it makes no sense to spend the time, the energy, the resources, pulling together a grant that really out of the box was never going to be successful, right? And I work with individuals to make sure that their proposals are as reviewer ready as possible. Again, as a reviewer, as a person who sits behind the scenes, gets all the proposals that come in and score them, I now work with organizations to tell you, listen, this is what you need to do to have that proposal reviewer ready. Okay, that's what I do now. I help people make their proposals reviewer ready. I coach, I mentor, I walk alongside to make sure that you have the strongest proposal possible. All right. So the first tip that I want to tell you about, because there are very common errors as a reviewer, these are the things that we look for to disqualify your grant. This is what we do. We look for things to disqualify your grant. And the first thing that we look for are those that did not take time to write a good proposal. I know immediately, right? So I have read federal grants, I've read foundation grants, I've read state grants. I mean, I've read them all. And I can tell within probably the first page of any proposal how much time you spent writing that proposal. I can tell. When I talk to people who call me and say, Jen, I need help with writing my proposal, all right? And the first question I ask is, tell me your program. And when it comes to, well, I need this. I want to write the grant because I need a building, or I need to pay staff, or I need travel expenses, or I'm like, that's not your program. You're not telling me about your program. You're telling me what you need. That is the first clue, people. Okay? So, if a proposal is not well thought out and you have not taken the sufficient time necessary to think through, this is my program. These are our goals and objectives. This is going to be our outcomes. This is going to be our timeline. These are going to be our partners. This is This is the description of the people whom we are going to serve. This is what the impact is going to look like. This is what they're going to look like when they come in and when they leave. This is how we're going to measure impact. All right? None of that is written. None of that is explained in the proposal. I know you did not take time. Either you did not take time or you didn't know how. You didn't understand how to put together the proposal. Right? So you submit out for an RFP, and I understand that people who are just starting off may not understand the acronyms. You may not know what an RFP is. You may not know what an LOI is. You may not know any of that, and that's fine, because that's where I come in and I can help you figure all that out. But what you should know is how to follow the instructions. I can tell you that when I first started in fundraising close to 30 years ago, I was in school studying sociology, right? So my goal was to go to law school and to be a lawyer. But I love people and I wanted to study people. So I started with sociology. And I was doing an internship for the Kingsport Public Housing Authority in Kingsport, Tennessee. I will never forget that. Beautiful, beautiful little place. And I had to, sorry about that. I had to write a grant. I was an intern, okay? I was an intern. I was probably getting paid probably not even $5 an hour as an intern. It was crazy, but anyway. I had to write a grant. It was a drug and alcohol elimination grant. It was for $250,000, and it was going to HUD, Housing and Urban Development. It was going to HUD. And I can remember not having a clue where to start. And that's why my passion, this is where my passion comes from. this is where my heart bleeds and goes out, and I bend over backwards to walk alongside you brand new fund developers or grant writers or those who are looking to get into the field of fundraising, because this is exactly how I started, okay? So I didn't know what a grant was. I had no clue. And in class, my graduate class, one of the things that we had to do was to write a grant. And I'm looking around like, what is that? I've never heard of that. I was crazy enough to go to Mr. Charles Spann, who was the executive director at the time. I went to Mr. Spann and I said, Mr. Spann, I got to write a grant and I don't know what to do. And I have no idea how to start. And he said to me, here's a proposal. Now, see, he knew cheap labor. He knew he was going to get him some cheap labor. So he gave me this grant proposal for $250,000. And I was so green. I was so like not even understanding where to begin that I didn't know that a lot of this documentation was already created. I had no idea. But I was creative enough to go and duplicate it. I mean, unnecessarily. And he let me. That's the sick part, is that he let me. He let me figure it out. He let me make mistakes. He let me go the long way around the barn. But as a result of that, my grant was funded. And in my class, I was the only one who wrote a real grant. Everybody else made one up. I didn't know I could make one up. I didn't know enough about it to make one up, right? So I wrote a real one. Everyone else made theirs, but I was the only one who got an A because my grant was real and it was funded. Mr. Spann took me from there to start working with Northeast State Technical Community College and some of the other people that he was on board with, organizations, with the banks. I mean, it was crazy. I was writing grants, federal grants, state grants, large foundation grants, corporate grants. All of that was how I broke my tooth on grant writing. Okay? This is close to 30 years ago. I mean, I was developing grants from scratch, concepts, taking concepts and building a program around them and getting them funded. At the time, I did not understand or appreciate what I was doing, right? But today, I am able to walk alongside many of you who are in ministry, who are just starting and having a passion for grant writing or a passion for raising money. I get it because I was there. I absolutely get it. And my heart goes out, which is why I want to work. Which is why I have successfully raised close to $70 million. And my heart is to walk alongside and to help start up small nonprofits achieve great success in their grant writing efforts and grant seeking efforts, because that's how I started. That's exactly how I started. So I have nothing but mercy for the people who say to me, Jen, I don't know the lingo. Jen, I don't know where to start. Jen, I have no clue. I'm like, my heart bleeds for you. I get it. I was right there. And that's what makes me a guru and an expert, because I know your pain and I can walk right alongside you. So this tip today that I wanted to share with you quickly is 10 errors that will disqualify your grant. Disqualify your grant. Okay? And the first thing is not allowing sufficient time to write. Please don't do that. Not allowing enough time to research, not allowing enough time to write the proposal, to make sure that all the letters of recommendations are in place, all the forms are completed properly, that you have not taken the time to have your proposal done before the deadline. Before the deadline. Okay? Now this is really key. My first grant, I got to tell you, I was down to the wire. I had to drive it from Kingsport to Nashville, right? And by the time I got to Nashville, parked the car, ran in the building, got in the elevator, up the stairs, to the desk for them to timestamp it, I probably have 2 minutes to bear, right? And I had been working on this proposal for like a month. But again, I was new, I was green, and Mr. Span was standing back with his arms folded like, work it out, girl, you'll do it, right? And I did. But I don't recommend that for anybody else. I tell people that if your deadline is, let's say your deadline is Friday, your proposal should be done and being reviewed by Wednesday, right? So that, so that you have time to have it reviewed, make revisions. You don't want to wait until Friday morning, or let's assume that today is Wednesday, your proposal is due Friday, and you start writing right now. You start developing your plan, you start writing out your program goals and objectives, you start trying to get your letters of recommendation. There's not enough time. And I, as a reviewer, am looking at your proposal, your submitted paperwork, in a competitive lens, because there are hundreds of proposals, hundreds that come in, right? I have hung out at the DoubleTree too many weekends with all the other reviewers, and we have a stack of at least 100 proposals to go through. And let me tell you, we are going through them to see who we can eliminate first. Why? Because then we don't have to read the whole thing. So we're looking for those that did not follow instructions. Those go into a special pile that will not be reviewed and will not be funded. We're looking for those first. And we're secretly hoping that there's more of them out of this stack of 100 so we don't have to read them, because we're sequestered for the whole weekend. The sooner I get through these things, the sooner I get let out. All right? So you want to make sure that in your writing you allow enough time to write. Time does not mean you need a month. Time does not mean you need 2 months. Time could mean I need at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks. 2 weeks to get your letters of recommendation, to make sure all of the forms are submitted, to make sure that you have your information. The finance person has to come up with the budget, right? The finance person has to come up with the budget. Your program person needs to be able to tell you what is our area of need. That's a whole nother video. That's just a whole nother video. Okay. But the time, making sure that all of the key components of the proposal are addressed. All of them. That you understand the directions. That if there is a page limit, even if there's a margin limit, right? If they want it to be a font point limit, right? They may say we want it in 12 point. Don't slide it in 10 or 11, because that will disqualify your proposal. Why? Because the funder's thinking is, if you cannot follow instruction on the application, the likelihood that you will follow instruction once you get the money, slim. Again, they're looking who can disqualify. They're not going to be able to give money to everybody that applies. So they're looking for those who they can disqualify. Don't be among those because you did not take the sufficient amount of time to write. Now, what may be sufficient for me might be different for you. But I can say to you that in the last week and a half, I have probably spoken with 5 people, easily 5 people in the last week and a half, who've all called me with a great idea, a pressing deadline, right? I'm like, okay, when's the deadline? Oh, the deadline. Jen, I need help. I need you to help me write this grant. First of all, I need help you to research the grant and write the grant. I'm like, okay. So do you have an RFP already in place? Yeah, I have one. Okay, what's the deadline for it? The deadline is March 1st. I'm like, okay, so do you have your program written out? Do you have your goals and objectives? Do you have your mission? Do you know what your population is going to look like? How are they going to be changed after having been impacted by your program? I mean, like, do you have those things written out? no, I need your help. I'm like, I want to help. I can help. But now we're talking about a deadline, and I never say spend the time and the resources writing for a deadline or writing for money. You want to write for your program. All right. You want to write for the program, not for the money. Because if your program is explained thoroughly and in a compelling way, if you are able to justify the value of your program, the money they will be happy to give to you. But you can't do that in a rush fashion. You cannot. It is noticeable in the writing, right? It's noticeable. Trust me, it's notable. And those who have, I wrote this thing down because I wanted to make sure that I remembered. It's been demonstrated that those who submit their proposals 2 or 3 days prior to the deadline have a 37 to 42% greater chance of getting funded than those that submit their proposal at the last minute. Let me repeat that. Those that submit their proposals 2 or 3 or more days prior to the deadline have a 37 to 42% greater chance of being funded than those who wait and submit it at the last minute. That's huge. Huge. Why? Because they've thought it out. I tell people, and this will be a part of another video that I'll do, but about the grant calendar, having a grant calendar, having a grant plan, having a report plan, your grant report plan, all of that is critical. All of that is critical. Okay. So over the next couple of days, I'm going to be doing various videos, and I just didn't want to inundate you all at once. I mean, I do Google Hangouts, I do one-on-one coaching, I do trainings, I walk alongside organization. And again, as a pastor and as a person who has worked in the organization, I get it. I get that there is a critical need for funding. I get that there is never enough funding to take care of the salaries, to be able to hire the professionals, to be able to pay your bills and utilities, to be able to buy building and expand and all of that, as well as implement your program. But my job and what I do and what I'm an expert in is walking alongside you who can help you see how can I make sure that my grant is as compelling, as strong, as competitive as possible. That's why I'm Jen, the grant guru, because this is what I do. This is how I started. For years early on in my career, that's all I did was write grants. I wrote grants. I wrote federal grants. Okay. For probably the first 3 years my focus was all federal grants, because I worked with a lot of state organizations, state agencies that had a lot to do with drug, alcohol, and at that time, it was really big. It was really big. Now it's a lot of mental health, homelessness, veterans, things like that. But back then, everything was about stop drinking, stop smoking, stop using drugs. Not that those things are not relevant today, but the agencies and the organizations that I worked with, they were multi-city organizations, okay? They organization or international organization. So I was having to write for federal dollars to get money from the government who was partnering with us on a certain cause, like stop drinking, stop smoking, MAD and all of those kinds of things. So I learned after becoming a reviewer very early on, because I wanted to understand and give back, right? I wanted to understand and give back what it was to do the review process. I'll tell you a different time about a collaboration that I had to do with 10 organization that they made me a reviewer for Wells Fargo. It was so amazing. But anyway, I digress. One tip that I want to leave with you today is making sure that you give yourself enough time. Okay, as you are researching your grants, as you are researching potential funders, as you are trying to evaluate who should you approach with a proposal, making sure that you give yourself adequate time. I always tell people, have a reviewer review it before the reviewer. I can be that reviewer. People send me their proposal, and I have a really great package where I review the proposal. I give them technical assistance, right? Technical assistance to help them improve their writing, make it stronger, clear up a few question marks, areas where the thought is not complete because I could tell they're rushing or they hadn't thought it through. All of that is going to be key when it hits the desk of the reviewer. You want to make sure that the reviewer is left with no questions, right? So I have gone through the grant, and I started the budget, and that'll be another training, but I started the budget, and then I go straight to the program description, and then I go to the program outline. And if there are questions like, how are they going to do that? Or I don't understand how this is going to impact their target audience. If I have questions as a reviewer, if I'm not clear of how all of this marries together, how your program description, how your mission statement, how your budget, what your outcome measurements are, what your budget explanation is. If I am not clear as a reviewer, I'm not going to give you 100. I'm not, right? So you want to make sure that the reviewer has as few questions at the end of the day as possible. And that's why having a coach or someone who reviews your proposal, who is a professional, who can help you, right? Not that you can pay a person every time, but I can coach you enough to where you understand, like, oh my gosh, this is what Jennifer would say. Jennifer would ask me this question because I ask the same questions, right? People get so sick of my questions, and I tell them, look, I'm on your side. I'm on your side. Don't get salty with me for asking you the questions. And I do it in a really nice way, but I do get frustrated if I have to ask the same question 100 times because you're not picking up, or maybe it's me and I'm not explaining it sufficiently. But what I want you to know is take the time. It may not be a month. I'm not saying it needs to take a lot of time. I'm just saying that if you can write your proposal and have it done 2 days before the deadline, can you do that? 2 days before the deadline, then I am more at ease in knowing that, statistics don't lie. It's true. You can tell. Those that finish 2 to 3 days or more before the deadline, 37 to 42% higher success rate because they thought it out. They followed the instructions. They were down to the detail. I used to take the RFP. Now, mind you, again, I was coming from the Federal Register. I would take the RFP and I would underline and I would read the entire instructions twice. I would read the whole thing twice. And then I would highlight the areas that I needed to remember. The page limit, the font size, the budget amount, the capacity, the population, the target population, all those things that I needed to make sure that I incorporate into the proposal, right? The language, they will give you the language that they want you to give back to them in your writing. But if you're not taking the time to review that information and taking the time to write the language in which they want to receive it, you may disqualify yourself. And you don't want to go through the time. Time is money when it comes to writing grants because many people are spending hours and days and weeks writing a proposal, trying to pull together information, trying to get data together. And you don't want to do that and then disqualify yourself. You just don't want to do that, okay? And I'm happy to work with you. I'm happy to walk alongside you. I have programs that can benefit you. If this has been helpful, please comment, please like. I can be reached at jenthegrantguru.com. On Facebook, I'm at Jen the Grant Guru as well, or Jennifer Yarbrough. My website is www.jdyarbrough.com, and my goal is to share my expertise with you to make sure that you are as successful as possible in all of your grant seeking efforts. Okay, so I'm going to come back with another tip or error that could disqualify your grant, so that you don't make those errors and that you will have much success with your grant writing. And I want to be instrumental and helpful to you in making that happen. Okay, I hope again this has been helpful. Again, take sufficient time. Take the time. Take the time. Take the time to write. And if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, any thoughts at all, I'm happy to work with you. I have some tools. I have some templates. I have grant templates. I have a free ebook. I mean, I have all kinds of tools and resources that I've gathered over my close to 30 years that I'm happy to share with you. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to hearing your comments, your thoughts, your suggestions, recommendations, and questions. And most importantly, I'm happy to work with you to make sure that you get all of your grant writing success stories documented for yourself. All right, take care. Bye.